How is everyone? Today's gonna be a very interesting video. I'll be bottling noise and I'll try my best to make sure that we capture everything that we want to learn. Our biggest story today goes around a lady called Esther and Queen Vashti. Today it's gonna be a long video. Why am I telling you that? Because there's so many things to learn from these two women, and I really want us to just open up our hearts to God and allow Him to just teach us everything. I hope I can battle the noise and I hope I can be heard clear. So this is how the story goes. This is what happened during the time of Xerxes. The Xerxes who ruled over 127 provinces, stretching from India to Kush. At that time, King Xerxes reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa. And in the third year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials, people who love parties. There we go. The military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes and the nobles and the provinces were present. So this is just a total royal gathering. For a full 180 days, he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty. When these days were over, the king gave a banquet lasting 7 days in the enclosed garden of the king's palace for all the people, from the least to the greatest, who were in the citadel of Susa. Wow. The garden had hangings of white and blue linens, fastened with cords of white linen and purple material, to silver rings on marble pillars. Yes, landscaping people, you totally understand this, and people who love decor and interior design. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Wine was served in goblets of gold, each one different from the other. Different from the other, and the royal wine was abundant, in keeping with the king's liberality. By the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink without restriction. For the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. Queen Vashti also gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. So the men are on this side with the king, and the women are on this side with the queen. On the 7th day, when the king Xerxes was in high spirits from wine, he commanded the 7 eunuchs who served him, Mehuman, Bizva, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, to bring before him Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. Yep, she was lovely to look at. But when the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burnt with anger. Since it was customary for the king to consult experts in matters of law and justice, he spoke with the wise men who understood the times and were closest to the king: Karshena, Shetar, Admatha, Tarshish, Merez, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 nobles of Persia and Media, who had special access to the king and were highest in the kingdom. According to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti? He asked. She has not obeyed the command of King Xerxes that the eunuchs have taken to her. Then Memucan replied in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong, not only against the king, but also against all the nobles and the peoples of all the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, and so they will despise their husbands and say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. Whoa. This very day, the Persian and Median women of the nobility who have heard about the queen's conduct will respond to all the king's nobles in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. Therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Also, let the king give her royal position to someone else who is better than she. Then, when the king's edict is proclaimed throughout all his vast realm, all the women will respect their husbands, from the least to the greatest. The king and his nobles were pleased with this advice. So the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each people in their own language, proclaiming that every man should be ruler over his own household, using his native tongue. Later, when King Xerxes' fury had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what he had decreed about her. Then the king's personal attendants proposed, let a search be made for beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint commissioners in every province of his realm to bring all these beautiful young women into the harem at the citadel of Susa. Let them be placed under the care of Hegai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women, and let beauty treatment be given to them. Then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This advice appealed to the king, and he followed it. So, this is the end of an era for this beautiful lady called Queen Vashti. So beautiful that the king, in his high spirits, when he's all full of wine, wants to display her for all the royals to see. I don't know what was happening in Queen Vashti's mind when she got that order from the king. I don't know what she was thinking when she was told to go in her royalty to display herself before the king's nobles. And I don't know what it was like, maybe in the queen's chambers, in the queen's palace, where she had also organized a banquet for all the royal ladies. And I don't know whether all of them were waiting to see what's going to happen now that the queen had refused to obey the king. I don't know what was going on in their minds, but according to what I see happening in the king's palace, I see wisdom being given to him so that he does not allow this disobedience from one woman to be picked by all the other royal women who are gathered in that queen's palace. Yeah, and this becomes the end of an era for one, but it opens an era for Queen Esther. Another beautiful story. So this ends on a sad note, but also, understanding the kind of responsibilities that God has given us. Queen Vashti being a queen, and then give with the wisdom that the Lord has given us. I don't know what it is that you are doing as a woman, and the amount of influence you have on the women around you, and the things that you are deciding, I will not listen to this or I will obey this. I don't know what kind of influence you do have. But what I see from the story of Queen Vashti is that with influence comes responsibility, and there's also accountability. Because if our influence is positive, then those around us are sure that the people that they have brought around us will be influenced positively. But if our influence is negative, everyone wants to make sure that we don't also teach those around us our negativity. So quite something for all of us to think about and to just ask God to help us know, are we influencing each other in a good way? Are we teaching the young women? Are we teaching those who are looking up to us to obey their husbands? Or are we teaching them that, actually touching on a very sensitive point, with all these talks going on about gender equality, gender everything, have you crossed the line? And now what you started talking about, gender equality and gender equity, has now turned into disrespectfulness to our husbands, to the boy child, to our fathers, to the people to the authority that God has put in our lives that are men. Have you gone to the extreme and now you want to encourage everyone to disrespect their husbands, to disrespect the authority that has been put in their lives? Have you gone to the extreme end and you're now asking questions like, why should I submit, without having a proper understanding of what submission is? And you're also influencing those around you who view you as a role model to disrespect their husbands. Have you gone to the level where you view yourself greater than your husband and you do not want to listen to them anymore? What kind of influence and what kind of authority and what kind of platform has the Lord given you? And what kind of accountability are you doing before God? And what kind of responsibility have you taken with the women that God has allowed near you? Are you using your position to pull rebellion, or are you using your position to influence people to first obey God? And when we obey God, it's easier to obey the people that God has put in our lives, the authorities. And always remembering that the husband is the head of the home. Whether they are all glam like King Success, or they have nothing, or they have no job. Have we started seeing ourselves as the men of the house, and yet we're women? Have we started disrupting the order that God has put for a family, of husband being the head of the house and the woman being the help? Have we allowed the enemy to start lying to us that being a help is any less, being a submission is being trampled on? And as I say this, I'm also just being sensitive. We want to also be sensitive to those who have been faithful in doing this. They've submitted to their husbands, they've been kind, they've obeyed, but have received such bad treatment. They have been abused. And my heart goes to you, and my prayer is that the Lord will protect you and give you wisdom on what to do next, on how to respond to your situations, so that you can be safe, your children can be safe, but you can also do all these things as you honor and respect God. Yeah. So Queen Vashti ends, and then we start with Queen Esther. So watch out this space for Queen Esther. She's coming in next, so it's not like we're waiting for someone else, but it's next. We're gonna have Queen Esther, and after Queen Esther we are gonna go all the way to the story of Job and dive into the one woman who's in there. It's gonna be short, but this one for Queen Esther, it's gonna take a while, because it's like the very different aspects of Queen Esther that we want to allow our hearts to absorb and learn from her, and allow the Spirit of God to teach us, to make us, to bloom us, to grow us, and to take us to the platforms He's given us with a heart that is in the right place, so that we don't fall into the trap that Queen Vashti found herself in. I really hope the volume is good, because the noise outside here. Yeah, I just wanted some change of scenario, change of background. Okay, thank you so much. God bless you. See you. Bye-bye. I hope you're blessed. I hope you continue to grow in the ways of the Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.